I'm Tommy Kolb, and I chose the rhetoric theory. So what is the rhetoric theory? It's pretty much the art of persuasive speaking or writing. It's literally language, how the words you use, how you put those words together. In the rhetoric theory, you use tons of figures of speech just to try to convince whoever you're talking to or writing to, get your idea across, pretty much. There's three key elements. Obviously, you need a speaker, you need your speech or your language, and then you need a listener in order for the rhetoric theory to come into play. And it came upon us when man started speaking, because it just deals with all language in general. Next slide, please. Examples. During my research, the biggest examples that I found were political speeches and advertising. Whether the political speeches were convincing you for good things or bad things, rhetoric can be used in any form. And then obviously, here's your three things that when they use rhetoric, they're trying to pertain to the listener, where would be like the character of the writer. Like, so if someone is saying, you should believe me because I have this degree or XYZ, or I'm this kind of person, that would be ethos. And then pathos would be appealing to the emotions of the listener. So if it's supposed to be sad, they're going to want to play into that when they're speaking to somebody. And then logic, which is logos, which is, hey, you should do this because it's just obvious, it's factual, you know? Next slide, please. Likes and dislikes. So during my research, I kind of found that it's not definitive. It can be used in so many different ways, and I kind of like things in a black and white. You know, this is how it works. This is how it's done. This should be your results. The rhetoric theory is just so wide that there's not really anything that's definitive. And this said, just like I was talking about when I mentioned the political speeches, I found during my research that people use it for evil a lot. A lot of rhetoric is just convincing people to do things for personal gain, you know. And like I said, it's not definitive. There's many forms of it. It's just a huge range. Next slide, please. So to wrap things up, you use rhetoric every day, whether you know it or not. You're talking to people, you're trying to convince them, or you're really anything, and how you put your words together. So if you're writing a paper or anything like that, the way you form a sentence, that's rhetoric. It dates back to ancient Greece. It started when man started talking, but no one really came up with a theory until Aristotle did in ancient Greek times, and he was the one who came up with the ethos, pathos, logos, and applying that to rhetoric. It can be used in any situation possible.